Okay, this is state debt as a percentage of GDP. I've got a graph with Praveen Gordhan's name in picture in here as well. And Praveen Gordhan was the Minister of Finance during this time, mostly. And Praveen Gordhan, he was the guy that set this whole thing in motion. Praveen Gordhan was a horrible Minister of Finance. Can't understand why people think he walks on water. Praveen Gordhan was a guy gave a huge increases to the civil servants, well above inflation. He was the guy that kept on transferring this huge amounts of money to the state-owned enterprises. Now he's the Minister of State-owned Enterprises, and he's continuing with his destructive work. He's a real ideologue. I have no reason to believe that he had his fingers in the cookie jar, but I mean, the bar is set very, very low. I mean, this guy is not stealing, so he's a good minister. All right, so this is where we get our revenue from, the bulk of our revenue. 640 billion, that's 33% of total tax take comes from personal income taxes. I'm going to show you some graphs on that. The second most important one is that one over there, this value added tax. 400, nearly 500 billion on that. Followed by company taxes, about 17%, 300 odd billion. The fourth most important tax to the Minister of Finance is that one over there, and that is the fuel levy. And that was one big surprise. The Minister of Finance decided not to increase the fuel levy. Of course, all taxes are always bad, but I really thought that the Minister of Finance was going to increase the fuel levy. Last year he did not, and this year, again, he didn't increase the fuel levy. Maybe I could just make a comment about the fuel levy. Remember, the fuel levy goes to normal taxes, but it also goes to the road accident fund. And the road accident fund has got a massive deficit, a massive actual deficit on a road accident fund. So what is basically happening, we're not increasing road accident contribution today, but we're accumulating more liabilities on the road accident fund, which will eventually, we as taxpayers eventually will have to pay, eventually sometime in future. So it's not, it's in a way, it's a liability. You're not increasing taxes now, but you're increasing a liability on a road accident fund. So these are the major taxes and a couple of other ones as well. Yeah, I'll show you custom. It's a negative one. I'll show you now. I've got some numbers on the customs union. Here it is, in fact. So we've got, and I don't have the most recent numbers. I used some numbers a year or two ago. We're waiting for the most recent numbers. South Africa is part of the customs union. The customs union consists of Namibia, Lesotho, Swaziland, Botswana, and of course South Africa. So South Africa administers this. So at all the border posts of these various countries, South African officials are there and they're collecting all import duties and things. And they put it into one big pot, and then we distribute this pot amongst all the members of the customs union. In the case of Namibia, and again, these numbers are, this is 2021 numbers, for example, but it gives you an idea. In the case of Namibia, total revenue of the Namibian government, 37% of that comes from the customs union transfer from South Africa to them. In the case of Lesotho, it's 50%, and in the case of Swaziland, it's 60%. This is 2021. I know, because I know the Minister of Finance of Eswatini. I've spoken to him about them 2 weeks or so ago, and they negotiated an even further increase there in the case of Eswatini. Botswana gets about 27%, and South Africa, of this whole pool, gets about 7% or so. Now, what I've done, just to get a bit of a better idea of what's going on here, I've calculated on a per capita basis, looking at the various populations of the countries. In the case of Namibia, they nearly get about 9,000 rand per individual annually out of the customs pool. And remember, South Africa is a far more sophisticated economy than these guys. We import and export far more than these economies. So, but anyway, the Namibians get about 9,000 rand, Lesotho about 4,000 rand, Swaziland about 10,000 rand, Botswana also, let's call it 9,000 rand, and South Africa to get 1,000 rand out of the pool per capita. That's a per capita GDP. We are subsidizing, the total amount of money that we're talking about here is about 80 billion rand annually. So we're subsidizing the other countries to a huge extent. Now, I guess we have to do this, because if we don't do this, then, I mean, all the Zimbabweans are here already. If we stop doing this, then all the Swazis are going to be here and as well. So I just want to point this out. I'm actually surprised that the opposition political parties are not making a bigger story out of this. Okay, so let's see who's doing the payment, who's paying the money. There's 1.1% of individuals. In total, how many are there? But 1.1% of personal income taxpayers in South Africa. That's 160,000 individuals pay 30% of total personal income taxes. Let me repeat that. Personal income taxes is the most important revenue source to the Minister of Finance. 160,000 individuals pay 30% of total personal income taxes. 20% of all the personal income taxpayers pay, let's call it 90% of total personal income taxes. So that's a very, very, very narrow tax base that we have. You can't increase this. If you increase this, a guy's going to leave. And they're leaving already. Okay, so it's called a progressive tax system. I don't know why they call it a progressive tax system. All right, this is company taxes. That's even worse. Company taxes, 0.09% of companies in South Africa. That's 770 companies, not 1,000. 770 companies pay 2/3 of all company taxes. So that's why I said we don't have company tax in South Africa, because only 1,000 companies pay just about all the taxes. The rest don't pay any taxes. We can just as well put some measures in place to get rid of small company taxes in any event, to make it easier for smaller companies. This is an opportunity, actually, in a way. But it just goes to show how dependent the ANC government is on people that probably not supporters of the ANC.